When my husband Mark met Trisha, the then 34-year-old, he was 45 years old. They had met in the flesh around 8 years ago, when she was a client of his. She sounded bold, enviable, ready to be independent in another country. Eventually, Trisha got a job offer at Mark's. She snatched the job and with a winning CV and passion, worked under him. The work relationship appeared professional initially, but in the years they became a close one. When Mark was moved to a new office, Trisha would go with him, get a job in the new office. As soon as Mark left the firm, she left just a short while later because she simply couldn't let go of him professionally. They had no relation other than platonic mutual respect and friendship. He promised me. Mark, always the good guy, he brought Trisha home with him. She's new here and she doesn't know anybody, he said. We should help her out. I have a sister in her. At times, he even described her as his daughter or best friend. His talk was good and I believed him. I was just glad to have somebody like her in town because we didn't have any family in town. I took Trisha in. She became our daughter. We would have her birthdays, family vacations, and she was even invited to my children's birthdays. She used to go with us to dinners, and I took her out for walks and events, the two of us. She didn't have other friends and I would be her one. I even had to bring her out on dates, but she rejected everyone. Then, Trisha came to live with us. When we let one of our houses, Mark suggested she move in as the perfect tenant. As we moved out to a larger home, Trisha followed again, but this time subletting her room to make the rent. She was with us all the time, always present. I imagined her as my kid's sister and aunt. She'd been so many times at our house, she'd seen everything, she knew the code for the door. Even when she acquired her own house, she still spent weekends and whole weeks in our guest room. She had never left me for years. She felt like family. The fact that she was there was harmless, even soothing. But not a moment too soon. All that trust one had so freely put up was being dismantled beneath my nose. Mark started a new job about 5 months ago, one that he said involved being out and about networking. He started to drink till midnight or even 1 a.m., and said he was drinking with his work buddies, so I didn't give it much thought at first. Mark had been a party guy all along and his work was not rigid. He could work in the office or remotely, but the more late nights became, 3 to 4 times a week, the more I began to get uncomfortable. A few years ago, after a girls' night out, I called Mark. It was about 10 p.m. He returned after a few rings, and his voice rang just a little higher than the whisper. "Where are you?" I asked. "In a club with the boys," he said. "So what's the pub called?" I whispered. He took a few seconds and then said he couldn't remember the name. That struck me as odd. "How do you not know what the place you're in is called? Why is it so quiet?" I asked. "I went out to answer your phone," he said. It was something about his voice and absence of other noise that was strange, but I did not move on. "Okay, see you home," I said and hang up. Mark returned home about 1 a.m. I was mad, but I tried not to be. "I'll check your phone," told him. We shared passwords, never were spies. He resisted but finally gave it over. I wasn't looking at his text or calls, but right instead I went to his Uber record. And that's when it all began to fall apart. He had not been in a pub that night, and he hadn't been in the office earlier in the week. His Uber records showed daily visits to one home. The address didn't sound right, so I asked him who. It was Trisha's. After a bit of back and forth, I felt my stomach drop. I read his messages with her, but he took the phone before I could read much. Luckily his computer was on his phone, so I opened his laptop and loaded their calls. What I saw boiled my blood. They wrote constantly about me. Nicknames, video calls, silent messaging for her messages. He had erased all the things from before June 2024, but what remained was a tale of lying. The last time I challenged him, he said he had no wrongdoing, it was good conversation. Trisha reiterated what he said. I was misreading their text, but it came out in the end. Mark admitted to an affair of about 12 years since December 2023. But I was convinced that it had started a lot sooner. The betrayal was too serious, too calculated, to have been an early invention. My husband was cheated on with someone I'd taken into our home, someone I loved and treated as family. Everything she had been up to at our house replayed. She had been on our couch with Mark, and I had been nearby, blind. They went to the movies while I was late at work or woke up early, and presumed they were just hanging out. 4 years, I'd gone out of my way to put her in, to welcome her in. I thought I was being opportunistic and philanthropic, not arrogant or fearful. But all along they'd been going on about it under my nose. The lies felt endless. Mark had not only abandoned me, he had trampled our marriage to the very foundations. And Trisha, she'd played on my trust and love. She had looked me in the eye, called me a friend, and then went back around and slept with my husband. What next? I am now left to wonder. Mark has been beseeching for forgiveness, that he would end the affair and remarry us. But trust is not easily replaced after all. I have thought about marriage counseling, but not that it is worth it. When you're 19 years married with teenagers in tow, everything counts. And then there's the money. I'm much richer than Mark, and alimony to a cheater is just too much to bear. The wound is still raw 3 months after I found out about the affair. I'm abandoned, sloppy, and so broken. I'm attempting for now to take it one day at a time, savoring the waves of feeling until I know for myself and my kids what will work for us. But one thing is certain. I don't have the faith I used to have, and I never will.